with President Obama's leadership. You say that he's not doing a job. I mean, obviously the unemployment rate and the economy is shaky. There's no doubt about that. What about Obama the man? What is he missing in the leadership component, in your opinion?
Well, one, he's never been a leader before. And so a few of us looked at him and said, what do you think about selecting the man as president who's never led anything? He didn't lead in the Illinois Senate. Yeah, it's wonderful to be able to be an author and an editor, but I'm talking about leading an organization, leading a group of people, growing something, hiring people, firing people, all the process of leadership. He's never had that experience. He didn't recognize that part of leadership is finding allies and friends across the aisle and building relationships of trust and respect with them, working to find common ground. And whether you do that in the private sector or in the voluntary sector, as I did at the Olympics, or in the state of Massachusetts, where my legislature was 85% Democrat, I've had the experience of leadership. This president hasn't.
Is he a socialist?
You know, I prefer to use the term that he's just over his head.
Yeah, but you got to look at his economic plan, and an economic plan was top-down, federal leadership, getting us out of the recession. We spent trillions of dollars in that. And people say, listen, the guy's a socialist. It's class warfare. That's what he's going to wage against you if you get the nomination. You're a rich guy. You're out of touch. Is he a socialist?
You know, I consider him a big government liberal Democrat. And I think as you look at his policies, you conclude that he thinks Europe got it right and we got it wrong. I think Europe got it wrong. I think Europe is not working in Europe, and I'll battle him on that day in and day out. But I'm probably not going to be calling him names so much as calling him a failure.
What happens if he wins again?
I think we hit a Greece-like wall.
We're going to be Greece?
I think before the end of his second term, if he were reelected, there's a very high risk that we would hit a financial crisis that Greece or Italy have faced. I think it's also very possible that we would continue to see very high levels of unemployment. I think you'd see industry in this country, entrepreneurs, big and small, decide to go elsewhere, to take their investment dollars to other nations. This president has put together the most anti-investment, anti-growth, and anti-job series of policies I've seen since Jimmy Carter.
What about North Korea? The nut dictator died today. And now they're setting up missiles and all of that business. And, you know, living in a dangerous world. Do you know enough about North Korea to be able to handle that situation?
I can avail myself of the best thinking of people from around me and around the nation and look at all the options we have, evaluate those, analyze them.
But that's what Herman Cain said when he didn't know anything.
I know a great deal about North Korea, but before I would take a step with regards to North Korea, I'd bring in a lot of people, get a lot of opinions, analyze them thoroughly, and then take action that makes sense.
Dangerous nation?
A very dangerous nation. Look, we're right now, with North Korea now, there's the potential that Kim Jong-un will do something provocative. When change occurs, a setting is more fragile. But there's also an opportunity in North Korea.
Maybe.
And if we're wise there, we might be able to encourage a greater degree of openness and see the kind of change there we'd hope to realize.
Right. When you hear Ron Paul say that the United States screwed up everything and it's our fault that the Muslim jihadists are attacking us and that we should be friendly to Iran and they don't really have a nuclear weapon. When you hear a guy like that who may win Iowa, what goes through your mind?
Well, he's badly mistaken. I think the evidence points quite clearly to the fact that jihadism is not something we caused. We have to recognize that we are in conflict with jihadism and that ultimately the idea of Iran having the nuclear weapon would suggest that fissile material may find its way, probably will find its way at some point, into the hands of Hezbollah, Hamas, or some other agent of theirs, and the world will have nuclear terror. This is unacceptable to us.
Well, you're going to have to take military action to stop it because China and Russia won't cooperate enough to strangle Iran to force them to stop it.
Probably one of the greatest failures of this president's administration, a failure of leadership, was when he decided to give Russia their #1 foreign policy objective, which was removal of our missile defense sites from Poland. He gave them that and did not get in return an agreement on their part for crippling sanctions against Iran. Unthinkable failure. If he was going to do that,
get something
back. And that, by the way, that would have left China out there as the last man standing. My guess is we could have pushed China hard enough.
If that was then and this is now, and they're chugging along trying to get these nukes, and your new president's going to have to come in and do what?
I am ready to make sure that we have military options that combined with crippling sanctions.
Of course we have military options.
Well, but we have developed in a way that Iran understands we would use military options.
Are you a tough guy? Are you going to sit and stare them down and say, look, I'm going to use them? Because if you bomb Iran, that starts World War III. You know that. I mean, they're going to try to block Hormuz. Oil will double. the unintended consequences all against the United States all over the Muslim world would be horrible. That's what Iran is banking on.
Then there's the other side of the story, which is not taking action with crippling sanctions and treating them as the pariah they are, and preparing military options. Is if you don't do those things, that Iran has a nuclear weapon, that nuclear material will ultimately be used.
No doubt about it. So you're telling me today that you're tough enough, all right, to take that, to tell the mullahs over there, because they're calling the shots, not the Dopey-Op and Jimmy John. Now look, you keep doing this, we're going to bomb you.
We have a number of things we can do short of military action, but we have to prepare now. Right. We have to prepare as well for military action in order to concentrate their mind, for Pete's sake.
Last question here. To me, the most serious problem facing the country is the $15 trillion debt. Okay? And you see the pinheads in Congress. They can't even get together to cut $1.2 trillion. How are you going to cut this debt down? How are you going to do it?
Three basic steps. One, eliminate a lot of programs that we don't have to have.
Give me one. What do you eliminate?
Well, Obamacare is the easiest, but then there are others. Number two, take a lot of programs that are growing at an uncontrolled rate, like Medicaid, turn it back to the states and say that's going to grow now at the CPI plus 1%. That saves $100 billion a year. And number three, we cut workforce by 10% through attrition. We link federal pay with the pay that exists in the private sector. That's worth $47 billion a year. And then reform Social Security and Medicare. Not for current retirees, but for the next retirees.
Yeah, they're going to be mad at you, though. We appreciate you coming on in. Good luck in the campaign.
Thanks, Bill. Good to be with you.